So you can see that all of this stuff was predicted to create a fallout of the intense trauma that they created. Out of the trauma bonds, the very bonds that they were portraying to me to be crafted, they wanted to determine it in me, to establish a rage or an outburst of intensity, an emotional outburst basically, that they could then craft up and work one over on me, keep me destroyed, frustrated, destabilized. They didn't just work on my downfall. They mapped out every avenue of it to create the hypervigilance in me, hypersexualize me, basically all of those hyper words that you can think of, hyper-traumatize, make me have to compartmentalize around every corner of my life and make the hyper part of it all look like I was the one unraveling without any purpose driven behind it, creating it to be nothing more than mental health per se alone, when it doesn't take a rocket science to figure it out. That's not true. But yes, I want to create the most powerful speeches about the insane ways that they calculated on a post-traumatic growth, instead of complete dismissal of my own agility and sound mind, like they had wanted. Basically, down to not only the neurological levels, but down to just anything that has to do with my central nervous system to be drawn up biologically, even planning to leave me in that slow kill until it just looked like it was all me eroding on my own part, doing it all to myself when it wasn't me doing it to myself. They just never allowed me to become who I was, or who I would be, or who I could still be today. Still working hard on my craft, working hard at a paper mill or metal fabrication company, or just working hard in general. They just didn't want me in any job whatsoever to be able to make my ends meet. And so when I realized these things, and I realized I had to work harder than hard, basically, like, you should always be a hard worker. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be, but it's the fact that when you are having to work hard, you're being predetermined in your job, and they're giving you like nickels for raise all of a sudden, and just kind of undermining you in the worst ways. I've been totally, thoroughly taken advantage of in that fashion based on my work ethic, and then all of a sudden other people are even able to get credit for what I'm doing in the job setting. So not only that, but I mean, even like that one best care or best one care, they just turn the name and make it obvious that they don't care about you. You can go after the old job, you can go after them, but they don't exist anymore, which makes it harder for the Department of Labor and Industries to do anything that actually matters, because they never actually wanted to. They never actually were going to. It's just a part of the recorded history of one of the worst ways that a crime could happen to a guy. I mean, just one job alone, owing me like $3,500 for that long. I would sue them too. just like the 4 or 5 hospitals, and just like all of these people that wanted to do this to me. But that's just it. Where's the legal representation? Is it in the state? Is it even available? Are there even any lawyers that are willing to speak on behalf of a man so eroded and played out of being able to have his own opinions, have his own options, have his own orientation? Because the orientation of my own potential is though I would be purported basically as having potential that's just going wasted. That's just going away. But it wasn't my actual potential. It was they didn't care about my actual potential. They cared about the progress of what I could do. They cared about my potential actually going above and beyond what they wanted for me to do, you see. So they never did care about my potential at all. They would just say it that way, as though I'm wasting potential. But listen to people very closely, because what they say you aren't doing, they are actually doing. And what they are saying that they're actually like and actually doing, you are. It's a complete reversal. Just to play into their fake little love show, or fake little love camp, or fake little family camp, that it's all phony. It's a phony attempt to continue to eradicate me, and their toxic traits showed up aligned for the cause of the identity theft and total erasure, to leave my heart physically struggling while at the same time emotionally struggling, and then having nothing to really back up their answers for themselves, or answer to it for themselves, because their so-called love was all ego. It was a crime, obsessed with creating the manipulated events throughout all of my history. They signed the documentation like architects of creating that chaos in my life, carefully crafted. I would also add in to the moments that should have gone triggered in a response that they wanted, to create the reactive abuse as they always would, and then play about the reactive abuse in order to continue to eradicate me, steal up my time, more of my time and energy and resources, you see, because as long as you're driving to and from these places and you're using your time to go to and from these places, and even in times where you're like asking to get out of work because you have to deal with these things, it's basically to steal up that money. Not only the money that they can take away from the time that you would otherwise be working, but it's also to steal up your time and energy and resources and miles, wear and tear on your car, gas, and just the resource of having someone actually be able to respond in a way that's to suggest these are actual crimes over you, not you are the criminal, or not that you are in the wrong. These people are in the wrong. So when they didn't get a response as normal as I had been in the past, with how their tactics were with poisoning me, manipulating me, and all of their deceit, they prepared for me to explode like a reactor. Coming to find out, they flipped like a switch, and they dispersed. But instead of what they wanted for me, they got me instead holding composure where others would have been frantically going off the handle. And they got met with the resistance that not many are born with. You have to like work on these things, because it's out of spite and spineless hate for them that they're spewing at you, or they're spewing about you, or however you want to see it. But you're able to then see it that they are in contempt of their own calculations, going amiss in an amazing way, as you can imagine, with the monster's crime is what I'm coming out here to talk about. But I had to calibrate myself and I realigned myself with the Lord, needing to know that they were actually working on my life through craft, writing up my life by design. And I caught on to every place where their corridor was meant to strip me of my peace of mind. I processed it while they operated to create that impulsive reaction, and I knew that that was coming, and I knew that another attack would come, which is me just coming through my door. Somehow they did something to my house, as I always had. I've never actually had a place to live or had a house to go to or anything, because even paying for this house, it was paying for my own tomb, you see. It was literally to dwindle me down to nothing and then take the rest of my identity away. So when I lived through that, and I was talking to certain people, person down in Texas, mind you, my own brother, it was me saying, well, the poisons aren't working anymore. Because I was working on that restraint while they were working on this terroristic plot to create that nuclear detonation in my life. Kaboom. Missiles going off. Guns. All over my life. Not in reality, but in the spiritual warfare, it's just the same. It's all about controlling me, controlling my mind, controlling my ability to practice self-control, and that law of inertia, where the body is at rest and reclaiming to stay in its peaceful rest unless acted upon of any other forces that would have been met with equal and opposite force necessary. But they wanted to leave me in this duress, needing me hacked and hijacked of my own life's plight to work on, so no one would ever even think of me coming fully into my own self and seeing me for who I truly was. Not some created imagery of the unwitting party of their biological warfare, but you would have to see that for yourself. They never knew my purpose, so they came and crafted back this attack, and it slapped them in their faces when they couldn't continue that same way anymore, and I could feel it from all sides of the crime against me. They just continued to work then on stealing away my identity in ways of complete erosion of my character assassinating me, taking away my network yet again, everything that I've worked on, which is all of my time, energy, and resources again, because I paid for my phone, I paid for my internet, just like I paid for my home that they gaslit me in after 12 plus years of fighting the homelessness that they had crafted out in the first place. So I chose to secure it in other ways. I remained still in myself and to keep myself intact with the Lord. And they couldn't understand they couldn't understand the willpower of a person that was so anchored and attuned to the Lord, so they couldn't barely hold any composure for themselves, wanting me to actually erode in such a fashion where I wasn't supposed to be able to hold composure at all. So that kind of hard work was done for many years, honestly, but it got really apparent to me that last 6 to 8 months, or even longer. But I was in tune to the frequency of my own destiny being aligned with the Most High God. and they threw their worst when they knew what they were getting back was not just a defense mechanism, but an architectural design hidden underneath their own fire notice. Their notice was of disclosing me, or not to actually reach any kind of disclosure, but to close up on me. Did they ever even pause to think, what would they do then? Because they thought they had it all planned out, not only to a T in this last time, but prior times. Create a suicidality, or whatever they could, in order to make it as though it was all me. Would it even have mattered? They had everyone circling in their house of thieves, smiling in their smear campaigns, mocking me, coming at me, many deep. But they never could actually come at me in a physical form, because that would be an obvious abuse to the light of day, where the police would have to do something against someone. So they're strategically trying to work up, like, who's going to go down for all of this? Who's going to take the bait and actually go down for all of it if one of us has to go down? Well, they're being strategic about it in ways that I've never ever thought to ever have to see, or have to see through, their activities being so cruel, and most wicked as cruel plans. But their provocation just weakened over time. Their tactics became mundane to me without even batting an eye at it, because they didn't even think about the warrior that I had to become, just in being homeless and knowing this homelessness wasn't my own. This was a crafted and created me to become homeless. So I knew I wasn't myself already a long time ago. I just didn't understand, like, the covert warfare, like where it was coming from, how I could go about getting out of it and things like that. But the fact is that they just did not care. They repeated the same side remarks over and over as well, just to add to their psychological torment, as though my life was one big tournament for their total disrupted and meaningful waste of space in my life to clog up the whole damn pecking order. But did they ever think about how hollow they had become? Did they ever realize how shallow they were? Did they ever have a hard time, like, getting up in the morning and putting their own pants on, to think to themselves, like, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I do to my own friend? What did I do to my own boyfriend? What did I do to my own brother? Did they? Did they ask what it means when someone was refused to be drawn into orbit in that kind of fashion, where they are no longer capable of hiding who they once were? Did they ever think about those things at all? Did they ever think that God wouldn't just show up and crash the party that they wanted to create over my life in that fashion? No, they didn't. And if they did, they certainly didn't show it to others. They only wanted to hijack my whole nervous system, as they've done before, and then go to work on my life and watch me like a big Netflix and chill film, prepared to unfold and unravel, while not even being able to hold composure for themselves for enacting the crying crime that's so cringeworthy. It's just horrific and the most heinous of its type, if you ask me, that they aren't able to even come to me personally about anything of their own unethical ways that they stole upon my life, my ability of reason, my agility of sound mind. They only expected me to mirror their own instability and continue to go to work on me, to beg for others to be their audience at the same time that I was taking the bricks that they were throwing at me and laying them across the stages where I was going to be the host of that whole show, ready to put it all on display one day. I just didn't know how to go about it, because everything that they were, I wasn't. And I keep saying it, but I loved my people. They just did not know how to love me, let alone love at all. All their devotion to the evil chaos constructed, playing around my life, like them playing and going around in circles in those musical chairs of my life. So in Proverbs 29, 9 through 11, it says, "If a wise man contendeth with a foolish man, whether he rage or laugh, there is no rest. The bloodthirsty hate the upright, but the just seek his soul. A fool uttereth all his mind, but a wise man keepeth it in till afterward." I did not, without the truth being added into me in that way, suppress it. Rather, it was being suppressed biologically minutes after being unwittingly a party to that I was being poisoned way. And I had to figure it out. So once I did, I just waited to see how dark they wanted to take things, because I knew I had nobody then, and I still needed to figure out why. I've never felt so frozen in my own clarity of it to know how to distill it, how to transform it into anything where I could take it and make it good again for myself, or take what they're giving me and turn it around for my betterment, because they just didn't want me in that better way at all. They thought they had, or they thought I had cinched up all that they had done, as if I was never going to start speaking out about it at all. But they were wrong, because I had plans for so very long to do this kind of work, and it would look a lot better right now if I had an actual support system. It wouldn't be about this stuff at all. It would be about my heart's desires, like being a drummer and wanting to work uniquely and creatively with my own passions. But they never had that. They never had that will at all. And it was always hard for me to speak growing up in general. So they thought that because they got away with suppressing my voice altogether before, that this time it was going to be easy peasy. And I was already working within my heart's work with the Lord. And so I knew now how to hold myself back because of what they leaked in their own lack of holding composure themselves, where I had to sit in rooms where I could have been sitting there bawling and crying out, and I couldn't. I had to smile through that pain, not even knowing where it was coming from, man. Not even knowing how deep that it could be given to me in that kind of way. But I didn't just show restraint in that way. I showed other forms of boldness that they couldn't take up. I needed just enough restraint to hold myself back, where if they wanted to be those rulers of darkness, sending missiles and rockets and bullets flying all over the place into my life in that kind of fashion. That my love life was the revolve around for all of their lies. And that's how they weaponized my love life. All their congregation and servants in this fashion are nothing but wicked. So I returned to my own safekeeping, even though every time I held that poison, every time they held that poisonous pain over their own little brother, they also held that same poison over their mother, over their sister, psychologically messing them up too in their minds, leaving them in the dark night of the soul and doing nothing. Withdrawing on them is like punching your own sister in the face. Withdrawing on them is like punching your own mother in the face. Withdrawing on them in that fashion where that mother is super proud to have grandchildren. You not allowing them to their grandchildren is just so awe-striking. It's so disenfranchising, and their wickedness increases, their transgressions increases, and they increase in number coming against us from every single angle into our spirits in any way that they can. So they turned every avenue they could into weaponry against us. But it's not going to work because it's in the Lord's Gospels. Even if they get away with taking a person's life is what I'm suggesting. Is that they're not going to get away with it. But you can see me for exactly where the missiles fell and how they zeroed in on me in that fashion, because they took such effect of me in all aspects of my life, not just the medical community in the recent, but with those who call themselves lawmen, where these lawmen weren't lawmen at all. These lawmen were dishonest players because there was no correction that could come from the whole menu of words that you could use to suggest to these people, because they understand what their intents are. They understand fully what their intents are and were. So they remain quiet, well regarded for themselves as rehearsed. They don't want to contend to anything that they've been doing, cursing the very foundational teachings that they reported as Christians to be, or even just great men, when in truth they aren't so great at all. They bring shame to the Most High God, and they claim that I'm the one making for all of the harm here, when it's them who laid every single snare over my life. Not just making it this way, they did it to me in not such fun ways at all. So they've made me look like an abomination because of their own wicked ways, their own deceitful plans. It wasn't just a crime against me that would go amiss in that fashion. I was not meant to survive through what they were putting upon me biologically alone. Not to mention the very spiritual warfare, war zone of being emotionally distraught because you don't have any person that you thought you had. Besides a few. And even those few, they're trying to determine and map out, calculate, and engineer over. So, anyway, if you like my work here and you think it's worth supporting, will you please donate to one of my crowdfundings? And if you can't do that, will you sign my petition? It's on Facebook. You can find it. It's a moveon.org petition. That's the most up to date anyway. I have other petitions on change.org and stuff like that, but I would like you to befriend me as well on Facebook, as my whole online community and everything has been totally gamed up. But you can find me as Cobra Merton now instead of Matthew. Or you can find me on X at OneSavvyNinja as well as here. So if you can, please subscribe, share your support. If you can't give anything, I'm not asking for much from people that don't have it to give. I'm just asking for what you can do. It goes a long way in my life right now. And I appreciate my mom for doing as much as she has. But I'm looking for the community outreach of support system that's out here in the general of real charitable actions for a real pursuit of my own, to be able to not only live my own life, but I wanted more in my life is all. I'm falling asleep. My identity they stole, my joy, my network, and my very own voice. It's clearly been manipulated in any other fashion than it otherwise would be in my creative passions. So I hope you can see that for yourself, because if you're not able to see that for yourself, I pray for your pineal gland to be opened up to the truth, because where I was put into a homeless shelter in the first place was the first place in the whole entire world that they performed the first lobotomy on a person. Right here in the state of Minnesota, in the Halloween capital of the world, Anoka, the city, inside of Anoka County, where, just like that accident that was created, there was not one sheriff, not one police officer, not anybody, but all Anoka County sheriffs, or I should say not one other city's sheriff that was in that same vicinity, which does not make any sense to me whatsoever. So upon reaching out for discovery and paying for those CDs was specifically so that I could get representation for myself, being that they shut off the camera, they took their story, but they didn't even ever ask me the side of my story. They looked at the scene and determined the scene before even coming onto the scene. And I think that any real judge would have been able to clearly see that with the CDs of proof that I had to pay for to go and get. Without me paying for to go and get those, though, I believe that they would have utilized it to the rest of the way to determine more of my life than what they had. So, with these people working in the backgrounds of my life in that fashion, they should all just go get fucked. Because the world is so heinous, and that activity in and of itself, to be able to work in these ways in and of itself, to then think that you don't even have your own, to then think that, oh, you're gonna sit there and punch your own sister and mom every single day by withdrawing that love's value. Okay, go pump up your kicks, enjoy your $500,000 house or whatever you have. Enjoy our little life. Enjoy your little stay. Because in the end, if you aren't repenting for your sins and you aren't trying to do anything to make amends in that fashion with your own heart's work, sorry, but I don't believe that the Lord is going to take too kindly to these people for doing what they've done. And it's spelled out in the Bible. It says, do not touch one single hair on my anointed. You do not do anything, and you're not going to get away with doing anything to the anointed ones. I'm going to take a nap now. appreciate you guys being here. I hope that I can get your honorable support on my Facebook and my X channel. My petitions, please sign them. I would like to speak out in front of Congress. And if you don't have anything to give financially, can you give in other ways of sharing my message on your own platforms, your own walls? Can you create a campaign for me? There's so many different ways that you could say how this happened in my life. But if you did reach a support and a supportive system for me in place, I would really appreciate it, because I'm feeling pretty doggone determined in my life, and I think I deserve better. I believe I deserve better, and I believe a whole lot of other people out here deserve better than what they're getting. So until next one, thanks so much for being here.